I want to be a doctor because I want to help people. Liking science and wanting to help people, I can name at least 10 careers where you can do that. Hey y'all, my name is Oriafe. I'm a second year med student who makes videos about med school, BSMD programs, colleges of pre-med, and more. Today I'm going to be talking about mistakes that you can make when writing your medical school personal statement. And at the end of the video, I'm going to be showing one of my personal statement drafts that was pretty bad. And I want you guys to look at it and analyze it and see where it went wrong and how it can be better. That way you can do the same with your own personal statements. So let's get into it. The first mistake you can make is to not make yourself the main character of the story. When you're writing, it's important that you highlight your involvement and your impact. So rather than speaking about some random topic and going on about that, or giving a scenario that you're not really taking a part in, you should aim to keep yourself at the center of the story and make sure that you're highlighting your attributes that would make you a good physician and highlight why you want to be a doctor and experiences that you have gone through. For example, you can make your first paragraph talking about a patient like, oh, this patient had cancer, this patient was going through a lot, I got to see this patient's family come in and they were so sad. The patient still kept a smile on their face because the doctor was so kind. I want to be like the doctor someday. I'm being very generic. That's all fun and dandy, yes, but what did they learn about you? Nothing. Because all you did was talk about the patient and the doctor. The admissions committee learned nothing about who you are, nothing about why you want to be a physician except that you want to be just like that one singular physician. All in all, at the end of the day, they have no reason to pick you at all because you didn't give them any substance as to why you stand out or what makes you who you are. We only want main character energy over here. So when you're writing, make sure you're the one in the driver's seat. So one good alternative to the example that I gave before would be talking about how you interacted with the patient, how you put a smile on the patient's face, how you saw the intimacy of the physician-patient relationship, even though you weren't necessarily a part of it. Basically, try to highlight your impact. The next mistake you can make would be starting too late. You need to give the personal statement time, as you will probably have to write multiple drafts of it. If it's May right now, if I'm being honest, y'all should have already written your personal statements if you wanted to be done by this cycle. The amount of time that I often hear is to give yourself like 3 months to write it. I started it in like May and then I finished it in like October. That's like 5 months I spent writing it. So I do recommend giving yourself at least 3 months. That way you can craft it not necessarily to perfection, but to the best it can be. One of the main factors that can impact whether you get into med school is how early you apply. And if you don't finish your personal statement early, you're not going to be able to maximize your chances by applying early. The next dire mistake you can make is telling without showing. This is something you've been hearing since high school, middle school. You gotta show, not tell. You need to show and illustrate examples of how you displayed qualities that are important for physicians to have, rather than just saying, I displayed this quality. So if you're still writing your personal statement, I want you to think about a time where you displayed listening skills, compassion, empathy, concern for helping others, communication skills, intellectual curiosity. The list honestly goes on. There are a whole lot of qualities you can show, but think about a specific scenario or a specific period in time in which you showed these qualities. So let's just take one example from that list, concern for helping others. Rather than saying, I showed concern for helping others when I did this volunteer activity, you can talk about an experience when you were doing the volunteer activity that shows your concern for helping others, if that makes any sense. So for example, something recent is everything that's been going on with Ukraine. You can say, as soon as I heard about this news, I immediately sprung into action. I gathered my closest friends and strategized different ways to fundraise for the refugees and get these donations out to people. Stuff like that. So notice how you didn't directly say, I want to help others. You just showed how you naturally had a drive to help people. That's just a hypothetical. I just came up with it on the spot. Obviously, when you're writing your personal statement, you'd make it sound a little bit more elaborate and professional, but that's basically what I'm talking about. Take whatever you're writing about and try and apply that to it. The next mistake you can make is kind of a little bit iffy. Some people agree with it, disagree with it, but in my opinion, another mistake you can make is writing about a passive experience. And this kind of ties into the first first point I had, but I'm specifically talking about shadowing. I'm not saying that you should totally steer clear from writing about the shadowing that you've done in your personal statement, but it's important to try to talk about something that you did rather than just something that you saw and heard. In as much as shadowing is very, very important for your medical school application and to show that you've kind of developed your interest in medicine, I would personally opt to write about an experience that you were active in rather than passive in. Again, admissions committees want to learn about you, not somebody who's already gotten into med school and graduated. If you want to specifically write about a clinical experience that you had or saw, try to highlight your role. Did you have any particular conversation with a patient that drove you to want to pursue medicine? Is it something that you learned from the doctor that drove you? I do think this mostly just ties back into the first point, so honestly I'm just going to move on to the next. The next terrible, absolutely horrendous mistake that you can make is saying a cliche that doesn't actually have any substance. Do y'all know what I'm thinking of? Y'all know? I want to help people.
I want to be a doctor because I want to help people.
Can you name one job in the entire world that doesn't help anybody in any way, shape, or form? I'll wait. Notice how you're silent. Helping people is not unique to medicine, and if your goal in life is to help people, you have no reason to put yourself through all this stress and heartache to become a doctor. There's no reason to, because you can do it in so many other ways. This is a mistake that people see way too often, so just avoid it. In fact, don't even include the word help in the entire essay. That's an exaggeration, but you gotta flesh it out. How do you want to help people? Why do you want to help people through medicine? That's the entire point of the essay. Liking science and wanting to help people, I can name at least 10 careers where you can do that. So rather than giving a generic answer, sit down, think about why you actually decided to go into this profession, what drove you, what events in your life shaped you, and you don't have to have some crazy sob story about how your brother died of cancer. Just be honest, give it actual thought, critical thoughts. Think of the moment where you decided this is what's for you. Either way, what I'm trying to say is give an answer that actually has substance, that truly shows who you are and what you're about. The next mistake that you can make while writing your personal statement is not having it proofread and peer reviewed. It kind of would show that you're a little bit careless, that you don't pay attention to detail, and overall it's just kind of a bad look, and it's better to avoid that if you can. I suggest you personally read it out loud multiple times to make sure that it's actually making complete sense. And don't just give it to one person to proofread, give it to multiple people. That way you can get as much advice as necessary. If your school has a writing center where they help read essays and stuff like that, utilize the writing center. Proverbs 11:14 says, "In the multitude of counselors there is safety." So remember that when writing your personal statement. Give it to all your mentors, your friends, your family. If you know anybody who's kind of connected to medicine, any medical students. In fact, you can even send it to me if you really don't have anyone to send it to. My email's in the description. Give me time though if you send it to me, because a lot of people send me stuff and it's not that easy to balance reviewing people's papers with my schedule, but I am happy to review it if you want me to. Simply having it proofread can help you avoid a lot of silly mistakes that can make or break your entire application, whether you want to believe it or not. And just getting advice from different people who have gotten into medical school to see whether the statement is effective and it's concise, it can go a long way. So yeah, be sure to have it peer reviewed. The final mistake that you can make while writing your personal statement would be talking about things that are kinda illegal. And what do I mean by that? Let's say you went on some sort of missions trip and you were drawing blood in a different country. If you're not like a licensed phlebotomist or a nurse or anything along those lines, if you wouldn't be able to legally do that stuff in the US, I would kind of omit that in your application. You can still talk about the experience, but I would just avoid putting a target on your back. It's honestly better to be safe than sorry, and I'm sure you have plenty of other things that you could talk about within your multitude of experiences. The overall goal is to still give a captivating story without raising any red flags. So now that I've laid out different mistakes that you can make, I'm going to read one of my terrible personal statement drafts. Thankfully, this is just an intro paragraph because I sent the intro to my mentor and she told me that it was terrible and I was able to make the edits accordingly. So I'm going to read it out now and I want you guys to predict what's so bad about it. I blocked out some names in here, so it's kind of color coordinated. Everything in red is talking about one person in particular. Everything is blue is talking about a separate person. He heard loud music as he saw her beaming headlights approach her driveway. He put a ladder against her window, struggled his way to the top, and fell into her room to surprise her. He wanted to make this New Year's Day different. This New Year's Day was going to be memorable. He heard jingling keys as she entered her house. The stairs creaked in the quiet house. Suddenly, Red and her mother heard a scuffle coming from upstairs. Red opened her room door to be greeted by a mask and a gun. Call 911. Bullets flew through the room into Red's mother's body and into Red's head. The gun was inverted, and the trigger was pulled one last time into the masked gunman's head. Just hours later, my Snapchat feed was covered with black screens with text that read, R.I.P. Red. Later, during the somber January week, my teacher announced who was responsible for the murder-suicide. My friend, Blue. Initially, when I heard the name Blue's last name, it did not ring a bell because I just knew him as Blue from health class. But when I googled an article about the tragedy and saw Blue's school picture, my jaw fell. It was later revealed that Blue had committed several other crimes within his neighborhood and that he was mentally ill. Someone who I talked to every day who appeared to be happy was struggling, and I did not even have any suspicions. This story is kind of dark, but can you think about what the issue was? If you were thinking about the fact that I did not mention myself once in this entire intro paragraph, you'd be correct. Along with some grammar things and like not being that concise, but that's not the main point. What did you learn about me from this paragraph? Absolutely freaking nothing. I feel like I did a good job of setting up a scene and telling a story. The only problem was I was nowhere on that scene. Therefore, you end up learning nothing about me, who I am, why I want to be a doctor, which is basically the whole point of writing the personal statement. Although this situation was a major player in my decision to want to go into medicine, and at the time I wanted to pursue psychiatry, I eventually decided to go with an entirely different story because I prioritized showing who I am as a person and showing my qualities over just giving a sob story that I was a passive player in. But thankfully, since I followed the rule of getting it peer reviewed, I was able to avoid continuing on this terrible personal statement. Again, in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. Let me know if you guys want me to make a video reading the personal statement I ended up submitting. If you guys want any sort of inspiration, please subscribe to my channel. I am so close to 1,000 subscribers, y'all. So close. So if you keep on watching my videos but you're not subscribed, now would be the time to hit the button. Comment if there are any other mistakes that people make in personal statements that I didn't mention. Like the video and I'll catch y'all in the next one.